Mr. Chair, I am all set. Thank you.
Okay. I'd like to call the Tuesday, December 8th, 2020 Planning Board meeting to order. Could we have roll call, please?
Buddy Bogan,
Here.
James Callahan, Jim Callahan,
Yeah.
Bob Doherty,
Here.
Dave Edmonds,
Here.
Carolyn Turner,
Here.
Mike Ventresca,
Yeah.
Chair Kevin Donovan.
Yeah. I will turn over the chair to Claudia for the first two items on the agenda.
All right. The first item on the agenda is it, hold on, I've got to get my agenda up. I was looking at the minutes, so I'm in the past. All right, first up, under public hearings, a continued public hearing on 316 New Boston Street definitive subdivision plan.
Yes,
Hey,
Madam Chairman.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yes, Madam Chairman and members of the board, just to give you a brief recap, this is a public hearing that commenced for the first time back in July and has been continued monthly since that time. The plan calls for the division of roughly 19 acres of property that's now home to New England Resins and Pigment into 3 industrial lots with a dead-end cul-de-sac industrial roadway. The planning board has been reviewing this over a matter of time. And at the last meeting, we heard a number of points. The first was a series of issues and questions that were raised by an abutters consulting engineer. And a number of those had been addressed by plan changes that were made by the applicant in response to those concerns. A number of other changes were made to the plan, mainly to address issues that had been raised by the DPW about the request for a waiver of the water line loop. Planning staff actually suggested that the board consider denying this subdivision potentially, and the other one that follows later in the agenda, because both of them have been designed to the existing New Boston Street layout and not the anticipated layout that will be the case when the city's and state's project to rebuild the New Boston Street Bridge is constructed. The applicant also, in response to that, offered, rather than a denial, a suggested potential condition that would allow would have required the applicant to return to the board if the right-of-way for the New Boston Street layout could be finalized before their construction began. Since the last meeting, a revised plan and a revised operation and maintenance plan has been submitted to the board and to the departments for review. I'll have the applicant later run through the changes that they'd made to the plan, but they were largely made, number one, to address the remaining. There were about 4 outstanding issues or comments from the abutters consultant that had not yet been specifically addressed in the plan or in the filings. And so the plan was revised to address those, and as was the O&M plan. And there were also some changes made to try to obviate the need for any waivers being required to construct the plan or the project. Also, since the last meeting, staff has vetted some language. At the last meeting in November, you heard the applicant's representatives offer, and in one case, at least the applicant himself, offer, or representative to offer that they would come back to the board for plan modifications that may be needed to make sure that their projects matched the revised New Boston Street layout. And they had indicated earlier at that previous meeting that they would be willing to accept a condition that would require them to return to the board. That offer had to be withdrawn and was a different offer, a slightly different offer was submitted. And when it's appropriate at the right time, I've incorporated that into my recommendation for action to the board at the conclusion of the public hearing. So I'll hold on further details on that and some other things until we get to the recommendation stage. But that's the summary of where we sit with this project. And I'll turn it back to you, Madam Chairman, or to Attorney Tarby to provide a further summary of their action since the last meeting.
Attorney Tarby, would you like to address the board?
Yes, Attorney Joseph Tavi, Woburn and Redmond, 600 Unicorn Park Drive in Woburn. On behalf of the applicant, Ms. Cassie did a great job summarizing what happened between the last meeting and today. You know, in addition, we had filed a legal memorandum with the board on the issue of the requirement to tie into the New Boston Street Bridge, which we found under the case law and under the planning board rules and regulations that there was no such requirement to do that. Everyone has received a copy of that, so I'm not going to spend time going through that. In addition, we did address a number of the issues in the site plan, including responding to the 4 items raised by the abutter, which Mr. Callahan requested that we do at the last meeting. So I think probably at this point, it probably makes sense to turn it over to Brian McCarthy of RJ O'Connell to go over how those comments were addressed and incorporated into the plan. So, Brian?
Yes, good evening, everyone. For the record, it's Brian McCarthy with RJ O'Connell and Associates, the civil engineers on the project. So just go through those comments from the abutter that were made through their engineer, Niche Engineering. The first comment they made was related to the fact that there's a groundwater monitoring well in the vicinity of the grass channel that we proposed on New Boston Street. The grass channel is proposed as a stormwater treatment device. The comment was that we should locate that monitoring well on the plan and make sure that we avoid it with our grass channel. And we did do that. We did locate that on the, at the site and show it on the plan. And it was actually located away from the original design of the grass channel. So we're all set there. The second comment was related to curbing, and it noted that the plan should clearly indicate the location and type of curb, the locations where there are curb cuts to direct flow into the proposed swale, and where curb ties into the existing curb line. So we revised our plan to address that comment and add details and notes related to the curbing to clarify locations and so on. The third comment was that the applicant should confirm who will be responsible for the maintenance of the grass channel, and it should be included in the operation and maintenance plan. So we basically the grass channel will be the responsibility will be for maintenance will be the current landowner, and we did include it and add it to the operation and maintenance plan and resubmitted that operation and maintenance plan. And then the last comment was that the applicant should ensure the grass channel is designed to fully drain between storm events. Currently that the outlet is at 1.75 feet above the bottom, and we need to make sure it drains down. So we did submit a calculation showing that the grass channel, it's a small grass channel, it's only got about 1.5 feet of water in it when it's full. And we submitted a calculation showing that the infiltration out of that grass channel would drain down within 13 hours. And the drain down or drawdown requirement for something like this is 72 hours. So we're well within that drawdown time at 13 hours. So those were the 4 comments that we addressed and included in the revised plans and documents.
All right, thank you very much. Joe, is there anything else that you would like to deal with at this time?
And no.
All right, this is the continuation of a public hearing. That means that anyone in the audience who would like to comment either in favor or in opposition to the plan has an opportunity to do that. If you would like to speak, if you could use the raise hand function at the bottom of your screen. And Tina, hopefully, will see that and will call on you so that you know to turn on your audio and video and address the board.
Thank you. And just for those who may want to do so, in order to raise your hand, hover your mouse over the participants button that's at the bottom of the screen. And when you click on the participants button, you should see an option in the right corner that says raised hand. If you do that, please now, I'm going to scroll through the list of audience members to see if anybody has in fact raised their hand, and I see none.
All right. At this point, Tina, I'm first going to ask for your opinion on this. Is it time to entertain a motion to close the public hearing?
I believe that it is. I believe that the board has received all the information that it will need previous to this moment in order to make an informed and correct decision. So I do think that it's appropriate to close the hearing at this point.
All right, I would entertain a motion from a board member.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
I hear a motion to close the public hearing made by Bob, seconded by Jim. Could we have if there's no discussion, a roll call vote, please?
Jim Callahan,
Aye.
Bob Doherty,
Aye.
David Edmonds,
Aye.
Carolyn Turner,
Aye.
Mike Ventresca,
Aye.
Vice Chair Claudia Bogan.
Aye. That motion carries. So at this point, may I ask the planning board director for a recommendation?
Yes, Madam Chairman and members of the board and the audience, I would recommend to you that you consider approving this subdivision by granting one waiver, denying one other, and imposing a series of 10 conditions. Specifically, I would recommend that the board grant a waiver of the requirement that a fire alarm system be installed in and on the subdivision road at the expense of the subdivider. This was a waiver that had been requested, and then the request was withdrawn, and the applicant actually included a conduit in the revised plans. However, I spoke directly with the Fire Prevention Office of the Fire Department. They do not rely and do not use this kind of a fire alarm system. They rely solely on the alarms that will be required in the individual buildings, and that is their preference. So staff is going to recommend that the board consider granting that waiver so that the applicant can remove any associated notes and drawings from the plans. I would also recommend that the board technically deny the waiver request relative to the roadway cross slope. That request was actually put in because there are two different numbers provided in the subdivision rules and regs, and one of them was a typographical error. I was able to speak directly with the engineering department, which confirmed for me that the roadway cross slope should be 3/8 of 1 inch and not 7/8 of 1 inch. And it's staff's opinion that it would be best for the board to be specific and specify a number rather than leave it unanswered now to be answered later by somebody other than the board. So I would recommend that we technically deny that waiver request and impose a condition actually that requires the 3/8 inch roadway slope. Again, approval of the plan subject to those two waivers and these 10 suggested conditions. Number one, that the required cross slope for the roadway be 3/8 of 1 inch, and the notation on sheet C2C stating that the roadway cross slope would be at whichever slope is directed by the city engineer shall be eliminated prior to plan endorsement. Number two, although all buildings in the subdivision must be equipped with fire alarm systems approved by the fire department, no fire alarm system / provisions for same shall be required within the roadway right of way. Therefore, the fire alarm conduit in the roadway's utility duct bank should be deleted from the plan, and the related notation relative to coordinating its installation with the fire chief should also be deleted. Condition number 3, prior to endorsement of the subdivision plan, the developer must provide to the board copies of acceptable drainage-related easement documents which obligate the landowners, his/their successors and assignees to adequately maintain and repair all elements of the drainage system that are not within public ways, including the drainage swales on lots 1 and 3. The easement documents must also give the city of Woburn the right but not the obligation to enter into the drainage easement areas for emergency repair and maintenance purposes. Number 4, prior to endorsement of the subdivision plan, the developer must provide copies of acceptable documents which obligate the landowners, his/their successors, and assignees to the provisions and responsibilities embodied in the document entitled Operation and Maintenance Plan, Long-Term Pollution Prevention Plan, and illicit discharge statement for the definitive subdivision 316 New Boston Street, Woburn, Mass., prepared for DM5 Inc., care of the O'Connor Law Firm, 16 South Main Street, Topsfield, Mass. 01983, prepared by R.J. O'Connell and Associates, Inc., 80 Montvale Ave, Suite 201, Stoneham, Mass. 02180, dated November 30, 2020. Condition 5. The city of Woburn is currently planning to relocate the alignment of a portion of the right-of-way known as New Boston Street. As of the date of this decision, the city has not yet effected all of the land takings that will be required to finalize the new alignment for New Boston Street. In recognition of these facts, should the alignment of New Boston Street be effectively altered by the city prior to the construction of the roadway approved by this definitive subdivision plan, such as to require modifications to the design of the approved subdivision roadway, the planning board reserves its right pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 41, Section 81W, to amend this approval to require changes to the definitive subdivision plan necessary to reflect the new alignment of New Boston Street. Number 6, the final locations of water services and gates servicing individual lots shall be coordinated with the Department of Public Works and the Fire Department. Number 7, the developer must employ acceptable and effective methods for dust control during site work, roadway, and utility construction, and until project completion, including on-site wheel washing measures and daily cleanup of New Boston Street, if and when any dirt, dust, or construction debris is generated thereon. Number 8, if construction of the New Boston Street Bridge and roadway realignment project is completed prior to completion of construction of this subdivision, the developer shall review the final condition of New Boston Street and adjust the subdivision's grading, layout, and drainage system design as may be needed to prevent any increased stormwater flow onto abutting properties. Any such design or construction modifications shall be approved by the city's engineering and public works departments prior to implementation. Number 9, the developer must submit prior to commencement of any disturbance of the site in connection with construction of this subdivision, proof that the services of a rodent abatement firm have been secured. And lastly, number 10, construction of all aspects of this subdivision shall be completed within 2 years of the date the definitive subdivision plan was approved, and that would be by December 8, 2022. I'm happy to answer any questions about the recommended conditions.
All right. Does any board member have any questions for the planning board director?
No.
All right. So before taking a vote, I would like to ask Attorney Tarby to specifically address condition number 5 that is in the planning board director's proposed decision that she just read. At the last meeting, I believe it was you, or it might have been your client, I don't recall specifically, put forth the suggestion that in order to deal with the planning board's difficulty dealing with a subdivision on a roadway that we expected to be different before your subdivision was finally completed. The suggestion was a condition very like this. The suggestion at the time was, I think, slightly different, but the condition basically said, hey, you know, we'll come back, we'll modify it. So I just wanted to ask you directly on the record that you and your applicant are okay with condition number 5.
Yes, that is correct. At the last meeting, both applicant and myself indicated that we would accept such a condition, and we'll reconfirm that commitment on the record this evening. That I've read condition 5, applicant has reviewed condition 5, and we're in agreement to accept that condition.
Okay, thank you very much. So with that, seeing no questions, I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to accept the director's recommendation on 316 New Boston Street verbatim. Since it's
Second.
too long to repeat.
All right, I have a motion from Bob, and I believe Jim seconded it, although the video just went out, Jim, so I'm just going on voice alone. Can you confirm that you
That's
seconded
correct.
that
I second
motion?
it.
Okay, thank you. I have a motion and a second. If there's no further discussion on the motion, I would ask for a roll call vote, please.
Jim Callahan,
Aye.
Bob Doherty,
Aye.
Dave Edmonds,
Aye.
Carolyn Turner,
Aye.
Mike Ventresca,
Aye.
Kevin Donovan abstain, and Vice Chair Claudia Bolgan.
Aye. So that motion carries. I wish the applicant good luck.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, next on the agenda, I have a continued public hearing for 0 off New Boston Street definitive subdivision plan. Tina, do you have suggestions for how to proceed?
So let me start with a very brief summary. Similar to the previous agenda item, this hearing, the public hearing on this application was opened in July and continued monthly through to this evening. The project itself consists of about 44 acres of land on which a roughly 400-foot-long dead-end road would be constructed with a cul-de-sac and 3 industrial lots created. This project too would require a couple of waivers, though the list of waivers needed has been reduced over the course of board review. Issues of note from the last meeting in November include the following. Number 1, similar to the previous application, staff raised the possibility that the board might consider denying the subdivision based on the fact that it was designed to the existing New Boston Street layout and not the one we expect to be in place with construction that starts next year. Also, Attorney Tarby offered, I believe it was Attorney Tarby, on behalf of the applicant, to accept a condition similar to the one we just discussed under the previous item. And one board member in particular at that meeting queried the the engineer for a little more information relative to the results of the water flow tests that have been done. And in response from that query, Mr. Tim Williams of Allen and Major had submitted a 1-page memorandum to provide a little more information as to how that test happened and what actions took place in what order. Mr. Tarby did as well provide a memorandum, again, pretty similar to the one that was filed for 316 New Boston Street, relative to the notion of imposing a condition about the New Boston Street relocation, but also stating the argument that it would be inappropriate for the board to deny the subdivision simply because it did not align with a contemplated right-of-way. So that sort of brings us up to date. I don't know if Attorney Tarby has any other brief comments or updates of things that I may not have touched upon before we have to open the hearing and answer additional questions.
Attorney Tarby, would
Yes.
you
Oh.
like to interject?
Sure, no, I think everything was covered. The only thing we want to review would be the hydrant flow test that was completed by Allen Major and reported by Tim Williams. If Tim, you could just review that with the board.
Sure. Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. For the record, Tim Williams with Allen Major Associates. We did respond to a couple comments we heard at the last planning board meeting. One was hydrant flow testing and the timing from the MWRA relief valve to kick on before we saw that increase in pressure. And we indicated in our memo then that was less than a minute. And the other comment we heard was relative to the granite curb detail. We heard that we wanted, the board wanted to be sure that it was 6 inches in width and had 6 inches of reveal, and I can confirm that the city standard detail is shown on the plans. Otherwise, we've made no other submissions of our definitive subdivision plan over what we had submitted back on October 9th.
All right. Is there any board member that has any questions for the applicant? All right, hearing no questions. This is a public hearing. If there is anyone in the audience who wishes to speak, either in favor or in opposition to the plan, you are invited to do so by using the raise hand function at the bottom of your screen. Tina, could you perhaps give further instruction and then check to see if there is anyone in the audience who would like to address the board?
Certainly, if you would like to speak during this hearing, please hover your mouse over the bottom of the screen. You will see the participants button. If you click on that and then look in the right-hand corner, you should see a button that says raised hand. And if you do that, I will see you. Also, I should note that if you are on a telephone, and I don't know that anybody is, but just in case I miss someone, you want to hit *9 if you would like to be recognized by the chair. I'm now scrolling through the list of audience participants, and I see no hands raised seeking to make comment or ask questions. Madam Chair.
All right, so I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
I will make a motion to close the public hearing on 0 New Boston Street.
All right, I hear a motion by Bob. I hear a second by Carolyn to close the public hearing. Could I ask for a roll call vote, please?
Jim Callahan,
Aye.
Bob Doherty,
Aye.
Dave Edmonds,
Aye.
Carolyn Turner,
Aye.
Mike Ventresca,
Aye.
Kevin Donovan abstain, Vice Chair Claudia Bolgan.
Aye. That motion carries and the public hearing is closed. Tina, do you have a recommendation for the board?
I do. I have a recommendation to the board that the board consider granting, approving the subdivision by granting a number of waivers and imposing a total of 8 conditions. The 6 waivers that would be needed from the board's rules and regulations are as follows. Waiver of the requirement to allow a right-of-way width of 60 feet instead of 80 feet, to allow a pavement width of 34 feet instead of 44 feet, install or allow a pavement thickness of 8 inches instead of 7 1/2 inches, and allow planting strip widths of 2.5 feet instead of 2 feet on both sides. Number 2, a waiver of the requirement to submit a sketch plan showing a possible or prospective street layout for any adjacent unsubdivided land owned or controlled by the owner applicant of the subdivision. Third waiver would be conformance with the Woburn Vision 2020 master plan relative to proposed streets. As an aside, the Woburn master plan didn't contemplate or even address the issue of prospective streets for the future. The fourth waiver is a waiver of the requirement that a fire alarm system be installed at the expense of the subdivider, and as may be requested by the chief of the fire department and approved by the planning board. As I said earlier, the fire department is not interested in an in-road fire alarm system. Fifth waiver would be to allow a cul-de-sac that is a pavement width and grade of 84 feet and 1.5% grade respectively, instead of the typically required width of 86 feet and the typical grade of 2%. And the last waiver would be the requirement for the looping of a proposed water main with other existing mains. In addition to the votes on those 6 waivers, the planning staff is recommending that you approve the plan with the following conditions. Number 1, prior to endorsement of the subdivision plan, the developer must provide to the board copies of acceptable drainage-related easement documents, which obligate the landowners, their successors, and assignees to adequately maintain and repair all elements of the drainage system that are not within public ways, including the proposed drainage easement areas on lots 1 and 3. The easement documents must also give the city of Woburn the right but not the obligation to enter into the drainage easement areas for emergency repair and maintenance purposes. Number 2, prior to commencement of site work associated with construction of the subdivision, the developer must provide to the planning board office written acknowledgement from Boston Edison, which acknowledgement authorizes construction of the improvements depicted on the definitive subdivision plan. Number 3, the developer shall submit, prior to endorsement and recordation of the plan with the Registry of Deeds, an operation and maintenance plan and a dust control plan to the planning board for review and approval. Condition 4, the city of Woburn is currently planning to relocate the alignment of a portion of the right-of-way known as New Boston Street. As of the date of this decision, the city has not yet effected all of the land takings that will be required to finalize the new alignment for New Boston Street. In recognition of these facts, should the alignment of New Boston Street be effectively altered by the city prior to the construction of the roadway approved by this definitive subdivision plan application, such as to require modifications to the design of the approved subdivision roadway, the planning board reserves its right pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 41, Section 81W, to amend this approval to require changes to the definitive subdivision plan necessary to reflect the new alignment of New Boston Street. Number 5, the final location of water services and gates servicing individual lots shall be coordinated with the Department of Public Works and the Fire Department. Number 6, that prior to commencement of any site work, the placement and final location of the proposed connection sewer manhole shall be determined by the developer via field evaluation post-approval in collaboration with the Department of Public Works. Number 7, the developer must submit, prior to commencement of any disturbance of the site in connection with construction of the subdivision, proof that the services of a rodent abatement firm have been secured. And lastly, that construction of all aspects of this subdivision shall be completed within 2 years of the date the definitive subdivision plan was approved, and that would be by December 8th, 2022. That's it.
All right. Is there any planning board member that has a question for the planning board director? Mr. Tarby, as with the last applicant, my understanding is that condition 4 was originally suggested by either you or the applicant as a way of dealing with the planning board's concerns about the alignment of your subdivision roadway with the street that we anticipate being different. Could you confirm on the record that condition 4 meets with the applicant's approval?
Yes, at the last public hearing, we did indicate that such a condition would be acceptable. In the legal memorandum that we filed, we also indicated that such a condition would be acceptable. And I have reviewed condition 4, and on behalf of the applicant, we're agreeable to accepting this condition.
All right, thank you very much. Now, at this point, I would entertain a motion.
I will make a motion to accept the director's recommendation on 0 New Boston definitive subdivision, including the waivers and the 10 conditions.
Is there a second? Okay. All right, I have a motion by Bob. I have a second by Carolyn. I would like a roll call vote, please.
Jim Callahan,
Aye.
Bob Doherty,
Aye.
Dave Edmonds,
Aye.
Carolyn Turner,
Aye.
Mike Ventresca,
Aye.
Kevin Donovan abstain, Vice Chair Claudia Bolgan.
Aye. That motion carries. I wish the applicant good luck and thank you all very much.
Thank you.
All right, I turn the gavel back to Kevin.
Thank you. Next up, under public hearing continue, Robinson Way definitive subdivision. Request to modify a condition of the planning board's January 13th, 2009 approval of the subdivision condition number 14 to eliminate the requirement for installation of a security gate at the location of the emergency vehicle and Conservation Commission access easement at the end of the cul-de-sac. Brian Melanson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board and the audience. That is in fact the subject of the public hearing, which started at the last meeting on November 17th. The request from Mr. Melanson had been forwarded to the Engineering, Fire, and Public Works Departments and Concom. Engineering, Fire, and Public Works had no issue with the removal or elimination of the condition. However, the Conservation Commission had urged the board to delay making a decision until an unauthorized encroachment in this location onto a property under its control was removed. At the November meeting, Mr. Melanson had asked for the discussion to be continued because he wanted to approach the Concom and perhaps do a site visit with them to view the so-called encroachment, which he really feels would be an improvement to the property and to the use of the property generally. He has spoken with reached out to the commission, but they have not yet been able to schedule a time to meet on site. And so he would like, as he did last month, he would still like to do that before asking you to take a vote on his request. In order to do that, we would need an extension of time for board action on the request. This is a public hearing that we will conduct tonight, but if you were to continue the hearing, we have only a limited amount of time to deal with this request. So Mr. Melanson has in fact filed a request for an extension of time for board action on this modification filing, such that it would extend the time frame for the board to file a decision with the city clerk from what would have been the deadline on December 30th to a new deadline of January 31st, 2021. That will allow, we hope, sufficient time for him to, in fact, meet with the commission and have this matter in the public hearing taken up at the board's scheduled meeting on January 26, 2021. So my recommendation to you this evening, after seeing whether anybody wants to make comments during the hearing, will be to accept the applicant's request for an extension of time and then continue the public hearing to 7 p.m. At the board's meeting on January 26, 2021.
Any questions from the board? Seeing none, this is a public hearing. Tina, is there
I have a
anyone out there?
question. Kevin, I have a question.
Oh, Jim, sorry.
Through the chair, Tina, has there been any correspondence or communications with the applicant in regards to his as-builting of the development?
You mean the as-built plan?
Yes.
So that he's definitely aware that that is a requirement. I cannot say, I think our last update from him in March, he indicated that he had hoped to get it done within the 6-month period, certainly by now. I don't have an update from him, and I don't recall that we asked this question last month because it really didn't bear on the modification request. So I'm sorry, I can't tell you. I don't believe he has submitted one, even in draft form yet, for engineering department review.
My concern, obviously, is the gate doesn't seem to be in opposition by this board. And the comment was made at the last meeting by the applicant that he couldn't complete the as-built because the gate wasn't in place, which, where it's designed, could be plotted, and everything else on that development could be completed, which is more than a day's work. Well, more than a day's work. But nevertheless, I see us back here well beyond January 30th if we haven't commenced on the as-builting, and that concerns me even greater.
I guess what I could say in response, Mr. Callahan, is I would be more than happy. I had promised Mr. Melanson that I would reach out to him after this meeting, of course, to let him know what the board decided in terms of continuing the hearing. And I would be more than happy to add to that an urging and a mention that you had specifically called this out this evening and urge him to get on that, such that perhaps he can give a more rosy update when he returns on January 26th.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions from the board? Seeing none, this is a public hearing. Once again, is there anyone out there who would like to speak?
If there are, please, I'll roll through the audience members. But if there is anybody out there that would like to speak, please hover the cursor of your computer over the participants button at the bottom of the screen. And when you see the raised hand button in the right-hand corner, click on that and I'll be able to tell that you want to speak. And Mr. Chairman, I have gone through and scrolled through the audience and no one has raised their hand.
Okay, what's the will of the board?
I'll make a motion to continue the public hearing on Robertson Way till the January 26th planning board meeting.
And may I, before you finish that, does that motion also include you'd want to accept the request for extension of time for board action? Because that's what will allow you to continue the hearing. Was that a part of your motion?
Actually, I'll make that the first motion
Beautiful.
to accept the request for modification of time.
I'll
So the-
second.
There'll be two motions, so I'll roll.
Motion made by Bob to accept the request for modification of time, second by Claudia. Roll call, please.
Claudia Bogan,
Aye.
Jim Callahan,
Aye.
Bob Doherty,
Aye.
Dave Edmonds,
Aye.
Carolyn Turner,
Aye.
Mike Ventresca,
Aye.
Chair Kevin Donovan.
Aye, 7 in favor, none opposed.
And then I'll make a motion to continue the public hearing on Robertson Way till the January 26th planning board meeting.
At 7.
Second.
Motion made by Bob to continue the public hearing, second by Claudia. Roll call, please.
Excuse me, can I just clarify to make sure that the roll call vote is taken? The hearing got continued to 7 PM on the 26th, correct?
Sure.
Thank you.
Claudia Bogan,
Aye.
Jim Callahan,
Aye.
Bob Doherty,
Aye.
Dave Edmonds,
Aye.
Carolyn Turner,
Aye.
Mike Ventresca,
Aye.
Chair Kevin Donovan.
Aye, 7 in favor, none opposed. Next up, under subdivisions, Perullo Drive, Murray Shannon Farm subdivision. Accept tripartite agreement as surety to replace existing covenant release lots from language of restrictive covenant prohibiting building on the sale of lots. Robert Murray.
Yes, Mr. Chairman and members of the board, you'll recall at the last meeting, the board established the amount of surety needed to guarantee completion of this subdivision. I'm sorry. I've lost my place. The amount was $525,252.15. Since the last meeting, the board had, or a tripartite agreement has been submitted to the planning board for acceptance. The tripartite agreement is in that amount, and it is for in the correct amount and drawn on the People's United Bank. Planning staff recommends that you accept the tripartite agreement in the form that was submitted, and upon receipt of a fully executed copy, I would then recommend that you release the lots from the language of the restrictive Form G covenant that was currently posted as surety. And in connection with that, there will be the need to have a member execute a certificate of release of that covenant. So again, two parts: accept the tripartite agreement on the United Bank in the amount of $525,252.15, and then upon receipt of a fully executed copy, execute a release of the covenant.
Tina, I have through the chair, I have a question. On the notes that we have, one part says 525,252.15. The other one says 545.
It should be $525,252.15.
Okay.
I'm sorry, and for the record, the tripartite agreement form is in that correct amount. Apologize for the typo.
I'll make a motion to accept the tripartite.
Mike, I think you're muted and you're trying to say something.
No, was it 5:45?
525.
5:25, all right.
So I'll make a motion to accept the tripartite agreement at $525,252.15.
I'll second that.
Motion made by Bob, second by Mike. Roll call, please.
Claudia Bogan,
Aye.
Jim Callahan,
Aye.
Bob Doherty,
Aye.
Dave Edmonds,
Aye.
Carolyn Turner,
Aye.
Mike Ventresca,
Aye.
Chair Kevin Donovan.
Aye, 7 in favor, none opposed.
Thank you.
Do we need another motion?
I'll make the other motion to release, once the surety is received, to release it from the covenant.
I'll second.
Motion made by Mike, second by Bob. Roll call, please.
Claudia Bogan,
Aye.
Jim Callahan,
Aye.
Bob Doherty,
Aye.
Dave Edmonds,
Aye.
Carolyn Turner,
Aye.
Mike Ventresca,
Aye.
Chair Kevin Donovan.
Aye, 7 in favor, none opposed. Next up, under subdivisions, Legacy Lane subdivision, acceptance as final as-built and street acceptance plans and release of remaining surety held to guarantee subdivision completion.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. We had previously received a request from the developer of Legacy Lane to release all remaining bond money that we're currently holding for this subdivision. There is 2 items or tasks that remain outstanding that are going to preclude release of the bond money right now. The developer is working on those. The items are the provision of tree belt easements across the frontage of each of the subdivision's lots, and the erection of a sign at the emergency turnaround that identifies it as such. So because there is a statutory deadline associated with final bond releases, we asked, and the developer, Mr. Mishenzi, filed with the board a request for an extension of time for board action on his request for a bond release. The deadline for planning board action on this request, which would have expired on, or would have been on December 10th, 2020, would be extended to January 28th, 2021, if you accept it. And that would in fact allow us to place this matter on the January 26th meeting, if in fact those 2 outstanding items have been completed. So I guess to recap, my recommendation on this is that the board accept the requested extension of time from developer Mr. Mishenzi to extend the time for action from December 10, 2020 to January 28, 2021.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Bob to extend the time, second by Claudia. Roll call, please.
Claudia Bogan,
Aye.
Jim Callahan,
Aye.
Bob Doherty,
Aye.
Dave Edmonds,
Aye.
Carolyn Turner,
Aye.
Mike Ventresca,
Aye.
Chair Kevin Donovan.
Aye, 7 in favor, none opposed. Director's update.
Well, a couple of things. I just wanted to let you know that we did have 2 subdivisions where the construction completion dates were expiring. So in keeping with what has been our practice during the COVID era, is we've had the 2 developers submit to us written updates on construction for 24 Flag Street and also for 88 to 92 Pearl Street. You should have seen those in the materials we sent you in advance of the meeting. I also, just to give you the update, is to let you know that at our next meeting on January 26th, right now we have the Robertson Way public hearing continuance, continued discussion about completion of the Robertson Way and Carlson Way subdivisions. And thirdly, discussion potentially of the Legacy Lane bond release. So that's right now what we know will be up for discussion at your next meeting. And I guess the only other thing I would note under the planning board director's update is that we did have the chair endorse an A&R that did come in since the last meeting for property at 44 Fowle Street. And we're happy to provide a copy of the plan electronically should any of the board members want to see it. So that's the director update for this evening. And the only other matter of business would be considering adopting the draft minutes for October and November. Thank you.
Can I ask a question through the chair? It seems that the first meeting of 2021 is not until January 26th. And I'm thinking that we probably need to have an election for chair and vice chair.
Excellent. I will include that on the agenda for the 26th.
I'm all set. Thank you.
Thank you for
Okay.
that.
The approval of the minutes for October 27th, 2020.
If there are no questions or comments, I would make a motion to approve the minutes for October 27th, 2020.
I will second.
Motion made by Claudia, second by Bob. Roll call, please.
Claudia Bogan,
Aye.
Jim Callahan,
Aye.
Bob Doherty,
Aye.
Dave Edmonds,
Aye.
Carolyn Turner,
Aye.
Mike Ventresca,
Aye.
Chair Kevin Donovan.
Aye, 7 in favor, none opposed. Approval of the minutes, November 17th, 2020.
If there are no questions, comments, or changes, I would make a motion to approve the minutes for November 17th, 2020 Planning Board meeting.
Second.
Motion made by Claudia, second by Carolyn. Roll call, please.
Claudia Bogan,
Aye.
Jim Callahan,
Aye.
Bob Doherty,
Aye.
David Edmonds,
Aye.
Carolyn Turner,
Aye.
Mike Ventresca,
Aye.
Chair Kevin Donovan.
7 in favor, none opposed.
If there is no further business, just doesn't appear that there is, I would make a motion to adjourn the planning board meeting at 7:53 PM.
Second.
Motion made by Claudia to adjourn the meeting, second by Carolyn. Roll call, please.
Claudia Bogan,
Aye.
Jim Callahan,
Aye.
Bob Doherty,
Aye.
David Edmonds,
Aye.
Carolyn Turner,
Aye.
Mike Ventresca,
Aye.
Chair Kevin Donovan.
Aye, 7 in favor, none opposed.
Thank you all very much.
Thank
Happy
you.
New Year and good
Peace. Merry Christmas.
Happy holiday,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Stay well.
You as well.
Oh,
Next year will be a better year.